Hi, I'm Leader Post Sports Editor Rob Vanstone, and as always, I'm here with our fine football writer Murray McCormick. It's playoff time and podcast time as well. We're going to do a couple this week. This one concentrating primarily on last weekend's game against the BC Lions and foreshadowing this Sunday's West Division final against the Calgary Stampeders, and we'll really get into the Calgary game on the next podcast, which is to be posted on Friday. So, West Division semifinal, Riders beat BC 29-25, which was also the score of the Riders-Calgary game on October 26th. What are your thoughts on the latest 29-25 game in Rider history?
Well, I guess we learned why they closed practice, because we didn't get to see that kind of Durant running the ball kind of offense on a Wednesday. We normally would have seen them establishing that kind of offensive pattern. I'm not sure how much the adjustments in that game changed that, but we probably would have had some inkling that the Riders were working on more of a run package with their quarterback. And then there he goes and he takes off. I know you're a bit of a Durant admirer, supporter. It was probably a very happy day for you.
Easy column to write.
And I think it was for everybody. We've all kind of seen Darian Durant get beat up a lot on the field and off the field. And he went out there, and we all talked about it. Corey Chamberlain did it 2009, 2010, when he showed that running style, that confidence, everything he could do to get the team to win. And in that fourth quarter, you've been around a long time, I say that. That's a fourth quarter for the ages. I think he just took that team on his shoulders and he ran with them. And everyone can say what they want around Darian. I think the hashtag Darian's fault works the right way this time in the Riders in that game.
I mean, football's sort of the ultimate team sport, but that's about as much, I think, as an individual can impose his will on a game when there's 23 other guys on the field. Obviously, other things had to happen, and Chris Milo had to make field goals, and Corey Sheets had to run for first downs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you look at the pivotal plays in that fourth quarter, and so many of them were Darian Durant using his legs, in addition to going 19 for 23 for 270 yards.
What do you think brought that on? You talked to him a lot, and I tease you about you and him having a bit of a relationship, but I didn't have an inkling that was coming. Did you think that was coming out of him?
It's actually, it may sound disingenuous to say it now, but that was the column I wish I'd written last week. And one of the reasons I didn't is because I'd written so many Darian Durant columns. I thought, is it overkill to write, okay, now it's time for Darian to impose his will on a game and use his legs and use that array of weapons that he has, because it's like he'd been using some of what he had, but that mobility was such an important part of his repertoire and it hadn't been used. But I thought, I've kind of overkilled the Darian Durant angle, so I refrained and have been kicking myself ever since. But that's what he had to do. That's what he has done in so many important games. Even in the 2009 Grey Cup, he ran 16 yards for a touchdown to put him up by 16 points. So that's part of his repertoire. But I think they also have to be selective with it. Suppose that Darian Durant had been playing like that all year. Maybe he wouldn't have been able to play like that on Sunday, because even playing as he was, it exacted a physical toll.
I've never thought of you and Darian with restraint in the same thought process.
I did temper my Darian enthusiasm.
You're growing with this. I think you're finding there's other guys on the field and whatnot. And I'm going to go there with the other guys on the field because we've got to talk about the defense. Dwight Anderson, despite everything that's gone on the off-field and his distractions, had the game-changing hit when he smacked Emmanuel Arsenault there. That was just boom. We all went, okay, that was the game-changing play, forced a fumble, whatnot. The Lions go 2-0 or punt. The Riders come charging back. That was a hit. That's why we love football. A good, clean hit that changed the game. The receiver wasn't hurt. The guy was. Everyone gets up and the game goes on. And I think overlooked in everything that Darian Durant accomplished was what Dwight Anderson did, and the defense did. Weldon Brown had some big hits. So I think the defense gave us some points. They gave us some rushing yards, but bend don't break. They didn't break when they had to, and I think that's overlooked, and it's a little bit of that defensive performance.
Well, look at that 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 1.5 gamble or whatever it was. They didn't make it, and at that point, you're thinking, gee, that's going to be an obvious line of questioning, not only for post game, but perhaps throughout the entire winter. And but the defense held BC to a 2-and-out after that. I think they got a single right after that, but after that 3rd and 1, that was a different Rider defense. So when they had to provide some resistance, they did for the better part of the remainder of the game. So it was almost like two different defenses. It was one that really didn't have a idea of how to stop the BC Lions, and then one that, as the game reached its climactic stages, performed at the level that people are accustomed to seeing.
I think this is a Rider podcast. We have to give kudos to the Lions. That three-headed running attack was very effective. Harris and Logan and even Lule with his shoulder. The Lions could have won that game, and I think if Darian hadn't stepped forward again, the defense shut them down. But I was impressed with the Lions. I know they're all kind of licking their wounds and trying to figure out what's gone wrong with a wildly inconsistent season, but they played well enough that they could have won that game, and we'd be doing a whole lot of soul searching and wondering what the future holds for these guys. But now the future holds another game in Calgary. As a kind of a veteran beat guy, I love going to Calgary for playoff games, and it's great here, but to go on a road to see another place in the West where football matters so much that no matter what the temperature is going to be like, it's going to be an incredible environment with the green and red and white all mixed in there. So it's I'm looking forward to that game. I think there was only 4 points difference between those two, and it's interesting that it's the same. They meet up again, rivalries in the CFL, but again, doesn't happen if it doesn't happen on Sunday. And I think Rider fans can be a little happier, because I think if they lose that one, there's a lot of questions being asked about which way they spent their money in the off season and guys they brought in, and now I think it answers them. Don't you? Do you think they've answered?
To an extent. If they go to Calgary and perform poorly, they're still going to have questions, because their objective, as it is every year, is to get to the Grey Cup. And there's no second place, especially when you've got a Grey Cup that's being held in Regina. After the home team has won the past 2 Grey Cups, expectations are going to be higher. This is a team that leads the Canadian Football League in revenues, and it isn't close. This is a team that leads the Canadian Football League in TV ratings, and it isn't close. And this is a team that's spent a lot of money pursuing veteran players, named players, and has spent virtually to the cap, give or take a nickel. So when you do that, and when there's sort of a confluence of factors this season that make it exceptional, I think the team has to be exceptional as well.
Well, they are. I think they had to win a playoff game. Like, I'm kind of I don't say satisfied, but I'm okay with the fact they got to the West Final, and whatever happens out of this one happens. And I think because they made another step compared to last year. Like, it is, we forget that in 2011 they didn't make the playoffs. Last year they lost in the West semifinal. This year they get to the division final. It's a series of progressive steps. It's not just huge jumps. So they've progressed, and that game is behind them, and now they move on. So I would have been okay. It would have been critical, but I think there's progress being made here at the expense of younger guys, yes, and at the expense of toying with the salary cap. But I think people can look at the progress this team is making, Durant showing up. And we'd all question George Cortez and wonder, when is he going to see the genius again? And I don't know how much George is saying run the ball to Darian's ear, but he must have had something to do with those calls. So, there's a reconfirmation of George Cortez being a pretty good offensive coordinator in that game with the way Darian ran the ball and stuff like that. One of the 2 catches I think I want to talk about, and what's looking back, Tash Smith's in that bobble catch was pretty cool.
Yeah,
I don't see that very often.
That could have been an interception very easily.
And that one that Darian dropped into a bucket on the sidelines. You see that happen in the NFL where it goes up and it hit Tash Smith. It was just so well placed. It was like 2 great plays, a great catch, and it was in a double coverage, which was a little bit of a push, but 2 great plays. I just thought those are 2 things I'd like to get out there, that Tash Smith came through with some pretty veteran plays and help the Riders look good in big moments.
I think there was a 2nd and 13 or a 2nd and 16 too, where he made a catch over the middle, and he's really emerging as a key player for the Rough Riders. It sounds almost implausible to say that a receiver who exceeded 1,000 yards is in the background a bit, but with so much attention to Weston Dressler and Chris Getzlaff. I mean, Getzlaff probably got more headlines for not playing than Taj Smith did for playing, and look what Taj Smith keeps on doing. So,
are we worried about Corey Sheets? He had a great run, but no 100 yards. He didn't seem to. When the game was in his closing role, it was Darian Durant in that one.
Not necessarily though. On that one drive that led to the Chris Milo field goal, I think it was 2nd and 8. And they ran a draw play to Corey Sheets, who got the first down. And of all the running, Darian Durant obviously had some running plays that were notable, but that 2nd and 8 run by Corey Sheets that moved the chains was, I think, as critical as it was one of the critical plays in the football game. So I think that deserves acknowledgement as well.
So we're not worried about Corey Sheets heading in.
I don't think Corey Sheets is ever a worry.
No. I have to admit, the weather was pretty bad, eh? I know people probably watch it on TV and wondered, oh boy, lots of empty seats, but I don't fault anybody for staying home. It was even cold in the press box, so we don't generate a lot of sympathy for shivering in the press box, but it was one of the colder games I seem to remember, for even though it was only, we'd been to worse temperatures, it just seemed more cold, and the stands were kind of empty at spots, but people pick them, and I guess it's better to watch TV.
There was plenty of warmth, though, after the game, and I think the nearly 31,000 people who did go were rewarded for their persistence and their bravery and weathering those elements, and I'm sure the weather will be part of the storyline this weekend as the Riders head to Calgary for the West Division final. We're going to talk about that a lot more on Friday when we resume our podcasting. In the meantime, thanks for being with us. For Murray McCormick, I'm Rob Vanstone. Take care.